It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. We're now at a point where you can literally type anything you can imagine into a box, and poof, a stunningly realistic image appears. I mean, this stuff is a total game changer for artists, designers, you name it. But, and it's a big but, with all this incredible power comes a really serious question.
Okay, so on one hand, you've got stuff like this. You can find tutorials online showing pretty much anyone how to whip up a super visceral, kind of creepy horror movie effect in seconds. It's wildly creative, maybe a little unsettling, right? But it really shows you just how powerful and accessible this technology has become for everybody.
But then, using the exact same kind of technology, you can create something, well, completely different. You can prompt a beautiful, serene, totally wholesome piece of art, like this pastel watercolor landscape. So the creative spectrum here is just massive. It goes all the way from the terrifying to the totally tranquil.
And this right here gets us to the core of the problem, which a recent academic paper really dives into. See, the big commercial models like DALL-E, they have some safety features, some guardrails built in. But a lot of the super powerful open source models, they don't. And that opens the door wide open for misuse, people generating harmful, biased, or explicit stuff. It's a huge ethical challenge.
So, the big question is, what do we do about it? Well, in this explainer, we're going to walk through it. We'll start by looking at this double-edged sword, define the safety problem, and introduce a new idea called the ethical lens. Then we'll see how it works, check out how it performed in tests, and wrap up by thinking about the future of responsible AI. All right, let's get into it. First up, we need to clearly define the AI safety problem by looking at two key issues that researchers are really focused on: toxicity and bias.
So first on the list is toxicity. And according to the research, this is really a catch-all term for any kind of harmful or inappropriate content. We're talking about a pretty broad range here, stuff like nudity, violence, hate speech, even the misuse of public figures or important cultural symbols.
And the second big problem is bias. This is what happens when an AI model just ends up reflecting, or even worse, amplifying, the stereotypes that already exist out in the world. So for example, the paper points out that if you type in a prompt for a doctor, a lot of these models will just spit out images of white men, completely missing the actual diversity you'd see in the real world.
Okay, so now that we've got the problem clearly defined, let's talk about the solution, or at least a potential solution. Let's introduce the hero of our story today, a new framework from a team of researchers called the ethical lens, and it's designed to do one thing: tackle these safety issues head-on.
You know, the easiest way to get your head around this is to think of it like a smart safety filter. Or even better, think of it like a seat belt for an AI. You don't have to go in and rebuild the car's engine from scratch, right? You just add this external safety feature, and suddenly it's a whole lot safer to drive. And what's so cool about this approach is that the ethical lens is a universal external thing. You don't have to retrain the super complex AI model itself, which would be a massive job. Instead, you can just plug it in to basically any open source tool. And here's the crucial part. It checks both the text you type in and the image that comes out, so it's targeting both toxicity and bias. So how does this thing actually work? What's the secret sauce? Well, it's actually a pretty clever two-step process. Okay, so step one is called ethical text scrutiny. Basically, a special AI reads your text prompt before anything else happens. If it sees a clearly harmful request, it just blocks it. But if it spots the potential for bias, think back to our doctor example. It can subtly tweak the prompt to ask for more diverse results. And this is all happening before an image even gets made. Then comes step two, ethical image scrutiny. After the image is created, another AI looks at the finished picture to catch anything toxic that might have slipped through. And if it finds something, it can automatically blur it, edit it, or just block it altogether. It's like a safety net.
Now that all sounds great on paper, right? But the million-dollar question is, does it actually work? Let's dive into the results from the paper's experiments and find out.
The researchers gave some really powerful before and after examples. So without the filter, you can see how an open source model might spit out a pretty biased or inappropriate image from a tricky prompt. But then, with the ethical lens switched on, the very same prompt creates something way safer and much more diverse. I mean, the difference is pretty night and day.
Okay, let's talk numbers. The researchers used something called a toxicity score. All you need to know is a higher score is better. It means safer content. The standard open source stable diffusion model scored about a 1.5. But with the ethical lens added, that score jumped up to over 1.8. Now get this, that actually makes it even safer than the big, tightly controlled commercial model, DALL-E 3. Wow. And if you thought that was impressive, the improvement when it comes to bias is, well, it's staggering. For one of the models they tested, adding the ethical lens improved its bias score by an incredible 969%. I mean, that is not a typo. It's a monumental leap forward in fairness and a massive knockdown of harmful stereotypes.
Okay, but numbers are one thing. What about actual people? Can they tell the difference? Well, they ran a user study where they asked people to rank images based on ethical alignment. Unsurprisingly, the base model, it scored pretty low. But the model with the ethical lens, it got a super high score, almost exactly the same as the big-name commercial model DALL-E 3.
So what does all this mean for the future of responsible AI? Well, it really points toward a path forward, a way to balance the wild, fast-paced innovation we see in open-source AI with the absolute need for safety and responsibility.
All right, let's wrap this up with the key takeaways. First, AI image generation is a classic double-edged sword. Amazing creative potential, but also real risks. Second, open-source models present a unique safety challenge. But third, and this is the hopeful part, external filters like the ethical lens show us we can add safety without killing innovation. In fact, this approach can make open models just as safe or even safer than the closed ones, and it does it all with very little impact on the quality of the image.
And that really leaves us with a big, lingering question for all of us to think about. Because as this tech gets more powerful and becomes a part of our everyday lives, how do we do it? How do we, as a society, strike that perfect balance between the desire for total, absolute creative freedom and the fundamental need for our collective safety? It's something we're all going to have to figure out together.